Allegiance and a moment of prayer. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Lord, we thank you for this opportunity for us to get here and to discuss, to brainstorm, to plan. We know a lot of countries in the world don't have this opportunity, so we thank you for that democratic process and ask for your blessing. Amen.
First. Okay. You've all had a chance to review the minutes from the previous meeting. Any additions or corrections?
Second.
Kathy and Rex. All those in favor? Opposed?
Okay.
Tony?
I had emailed you all, I think, pretty much immediately after the last meeting. The DLGF and Darren Bates contacted me. And if we remember Darren Bates when he was here saying that the state oftentimes switches things up quickly, well, that's kind of what happened. We had passed the lit ordinance, the change in the lit ordinance, and come to find out, we need to take another step to make that official. So what we're going to have to do, even though it's a little weird to me, but we will have to get a motion and a vote to exit the county council meeting. We will then need a motion and a vote to enter the tax council meeting so that we can hold a public hearing on the lit amounts that we had already done last month. When that is all complete, we will then need a motion to exit the tax council, then a motion to enter back into the council meeting. And then we'll go on with the rest of the meeting. I will have a few other things when it comes my time to speak. But right now, that's what we need to do to satisfy the law and the lit changes that we had looked at last month. Do you all remember what those are, or the press probably needs it? I don't know. What we are doing. Well, first let's make let's have a motion, Dennis, on.
That's motion to exit this meeting.
Motion.
Second.
Corey and Fred.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And we need a motion to
A
begin.
motion to enter back into, or enter the tax.
To enter the tax council meeting.
Fred and Bob.
Fred and Bob. All those in favor?
Okay, now this is the public hearing portion of the lit rates, and I will just go over those again so that it's fresh in everybody's mind. The proposed lit rate that we are looking at is certified shares 0.6%, public safety 0.31, economic development 0.4, property tax relief rate 0.29. And then when we go on, and again, this is what the law requires, even though the public safety says 0.31, we are creating a PSAP, which is the public safety access point rate. And of that 0.31 of public safety, it is going into that PSAP, so that's 0.02. So we are doing that. And the property tax credit allocation categories is proposed the 1% allocation type, which is homesteads eligible for a credit, 55%, 2% allocation type, residential, agriculture, long-term care, and other tangible property is 10%. And then the residential property, as defined in Indiana code, is 35%. So 55, 10, and 35 is what we are proposing and voting on. That's what was sent out to all of the taxing units. That is what was advertised in the newspapers. We now are entering the public hearing portion. So Dennis, if you want to see if anyone has any comments during the public hearing portion? If not, we can then go to a vote as the tax council, which the county council is 55%. The other towns
I'll make that motion.
are the rest.
Corey, motion?
But were there any comments?
He needs to see if there's any comments first.
Nobody
I'm
commented.
hearing no comments, then Corey made the motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay, and then we will get this sent again to DLGF. We have entered everything else into Gateway. So Julie Marie, do you agree that this is what we were told? This is what
This is what we were told is the new procedure by
So-
DLGF.
so I will get this entered into Gateway. We also had to enter into Gateway all the notifications and everything else. So this should be good to go now. And then what you'll need, Dennis, is a motion to exit tax
Motion
council.
to exit tax council meeting.
Second. Fred and Bob.
Okay,
Motion been seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
and
Motion
then,
to enter county council meeting.
okay,
Fred is going to
and,
get us back into our meeting. Fred and Bob.
okay. We are now back into the county council meeting, and you can go ahead. Do you have the order and everything you've got there? Or I have it here if you don't.
No, I've got it here.
The ordinance, which is going to be the
And
13th.
I know I said it last
It
time we
is
approved this before we had to go this process, but I just want to say it again. That last vote that we just took to lower the income tax is a culmination of a lot of conversations over a lot of years. And where we are today versus where we were a year ago, I'm very encouraged. Things were difficult for a while there, but I feel like council's on a different page than it was. I'm encouraged by that. We've got productive conversation happening on a range of issues. And I guess I just want to thank everybody for talking with me, communicating, and this is the beginning of what I hope is not the end of this direction, but it's the first step in that direction. So I just want to thank everybody again for that.
Any other comments? Thank you for persevering.
I'm going to pass that around. Well, let me just keep it all together, but the votes are there and then on the last page. And I'll get that over there. Kathy will put it on the ledge and I'll get that later because if I forget, she'll remind me. Okay.
So we've had a couple of meetings over the last couple of months with Rage Review Committee to talk about a couple different things. So we had one last month and the committee recommended to me to go back to get the job description updated for a position called School Health Liaison. It's a grant funded position, which the commissioners did reapprove that job description. So the recommendation I believe that we're making for that position today is that it be classified as an 85 or it be uncategorized should the individual hold a medical license is what the committee has recommended. So it's not on the salary ordinance yet, but once we have somebody in that role and we know what hourly rate they might qualify for, that's when we'll do all that fun stuff.
So you need from us to accept the grant?
We already
We did that
accepted
last
the grant.
month. Right. This is improving the job description.
Oh, this is just the job description.
Right, yeah, we did the grant last.
I think that was unanimous in the wage review, so I'll make that motion.
Corey?
Yep.
Bob?
Second.
Discussion? What is that range of salary, hourly rate?
We didn't establish a range because it's going to depend on the applicant's qualifications, so it could range pretty greatly.
Have a motion and a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
And the other one we had this morning was a position out at Golden Meadows. We created a position, the commissioners created a position called resident medical coordinator. And the intention is to not backfill the nurse manager position because we've got other resources that we're utilizing for that role. So that recommendation from the committee was also to, for that position to be classified as an NE5 as well. And I already have an individual identified at Golden Meadows who would be transitioned into that role, who's been doing it for about a month and a half for me already, 2 months already.
No additional funds appropriated, just okay.
Okay to move some things around.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Sure.
Have a motion and a second to approve as recommended. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thanks.
Thank you, Shannon.
I'm sorry, Shannon, I'm sorry, did you say that includes back pay? Or just starting,
Yes, for that position, resident medical coordinator, I requested the effective date be 6/24/23, and I've already submitted the paperwork as such, so Bree and I will work on the back pay. And I believe that's what you guys have on your documentation today.
no, thanks.
Documentation. Mr. Brown? Me? Yeah.
This is pretty much like what we experienced with the generator ARP. This is with WebEx, and it was initially appropriated for the equipment, for the WebEx equipment. But it didn't include any of the room renovations or anything like that with phase three. Phase three had room renovations in this building, in Superior Court, Circuit Court, Community Corrections. And there are some things that are taking place at the jail, but I think the sheriff is doing a lot of funding on some of that stuff with some cabling and so on. But there are some renovations taking place over there as well. If we look at it on what we have in ARPA for WebEx, and then if we add the room renovations, we're going to be short just with the room renovations alone at $55,261.09 that took place in all those locations. We have some remaining items that yet to be paid, and we're just getting some swags at some of these things, some cleanup items. And I just pinned down that it's maybe around $10,000, some items along the way, like door locks changes and doors and other things that are going on with that. So that's the first part. We know that we're going to be over about a little over 65,000 from what was appropriated through ARPA. And then we had some things that popped up with some new rulings that took place with the courts. And one of the things that involving with the courts is we're going to eventually have to be able to stream or record the meetings. We're currently recording the meetings and putting them up to the state, but there could be a thing where we have to stream them as well. That's going to take place 2025 or something like that.
July 1st, 2025.
Yeah. And so if we take a look, one of the items that we have kind of matured into since phase three was passed was looking at trying to find other locations in which we could have the courts in case we had a massive issue with one of the buildings that we had to relocate. Room 125 that's downstairs is a really good place in the fact that we can actually bring one of the court staff over, not just the court over, but we could actually bring the staff over if it was something prolonged. My offices, I would free all the offices up, including mine upstairs. But downstairs, we would have a separate entrance in for the judge. They could come in on the other side by the gymnasium and come through this new hallway that we're going to construct. The public could come in through door 4 and go into the little mini court, which would be nice for, let's say, Superior Court. And we could make that as a alternate place to run the courts if we had something took place, like a Superior Court burned down or something like that, something extended. We have something in the works or in the plans to make that work. So giving the ruling that we have to January 1st of 2025.
July 1st.
July 1st. Yeah, we have to have these sorts of things moved up to the state, whether it's the recording or if it's streaming, and they might say it's going to be streaming to allow the public to be able to come in through WebEx and to be able to participate in the meetings without actually being on site. That if we wanted to do that down there in that room, we would have to get some display and a camera on the back wall, which was not in the intent when we originally did that. And to migrate that all in the system and everything, we gave an estimate of about $25,000.
That's just for the
It's camera display.
Camera
and
display,
networking.
just for the,
streaming portion.
Yeah, that would assist and that would help out into their current, we already got the streaming part done with the front cameras, but they would have to have something at different angles into that room so that they could pick up the people and display them and make the meetings public or accessible and public. So there's just a camera on the front side. Like in this room, there's cameras in the front and the back. So this room could be an alternate location for the courts as well. But then you guys have to stream your stuff up as well at about that same time for the commissioners and the council meetings and when you have meetings. So this gives us a second place into this building, not far from the current courts, that they can come in and we could continue to do that sort of thing. And it's just planning ahead if we want to do it. That room downstairs would make it better if we had a second camera in the back with the display. And if we wanted to do that, I was thinking that maybe, if we wanted to do the additional and include that into it, then I had the figure that would show up into there, which would be about, what, 90,000 or something like that.
9261.
Yeah, something like that. That's completely up to you guys on the camera alone. I know it wasn't positioned into there and it wasn't thought of, and changes have been coming through since this was all approved. This was approved, actually, phase 3, like late in the year of 2021. And then things have taken place and changes have been done, especially with what we're obligated to do coming down the road.
so that second camera in the back is not required, or it is required?
We should have it. It's going to be difficult. Like I say, if they bring courts into there, it's going to be difficult with just the cameras in the front to get different locations around the room when people are talking and things like that, so that it can move around. Because some ways, if we don't have the cameras in the back, then you're just showing the back of their head, or people that are talking. So if we had the camera and the display and so on in the back, then that would benefit that whole scenario.
But it's not necessarily required, though.
I don't think it's required. And
How much?
saying it would be better if it was there. The other thing that we've done is we're going to be adding training into that room. And currently that would benefit the training that we're going to be doing if we had the camera in the back as well. So there is a current need for it, but is it essential? No, but it would be nice if while we're doing it, if we put it in place. And so that's to be as transparent as I can be. It would be much more beneficial if we put it in now so that you know, we could get the training to be done right. We're going to hire a person to do the training for all the people in the county, Adams County government, but we would probably allow even other people from other sites to be able to use it as well. And that person to help assist with the training is going to be taking place with their software. We have a really big need. I see that we can't spend time enough with just the three of us that we have currently in IT and covering everything that we got to cover, that we can sit down and actually train people on how to do certain things or to answer their questions and that sort of stuff. So we've taken the step to try and, we're trying to get someone hired that'll take on that responsibility and to be the true WebEx person and to promote training and to help department heads to bring, you know, staff in 2, 3 at a time to work through their specific needs that they have with their software to train them how to use it and those sorts of things.
Would this finally wrap that whole thing up?
I'm hoping so. I really am, Brett.
And probably the camera system now will be cheaper than what if we have to put it in 2 years.
Yeah. Yes, I can tell you that. And what it'll be is, I mean, if they weren't supposed to get to jail, they're working on the EOC room currently, but they moved the schedule up 2 months. It wasn't supposed to happen until September. Well, I was hoping that, you know, if we could get this passed, that we could maybe piggyback on labor to actually put it in if they were still here working on the EOC room, you know, get the equipment. Now that's out of sync. But the people that come in are not from around here to do this. And so we'd have to include, which this kind of does, I think. This includes them coming in and doing the labor and that sort of thing to get it put in. But all that stuff will probably be higher some later date.
Yep.
If we have to do it.
Mike, you think $100,000 is going to cover it?
To the best of my knowledge, I think.
Never enough.
Mike, are all of these policies in place as we transition to this process here? Do you have policies in place for the courts and the staff?
What do you mean by policies, Dennis?
Well, when they're going to move court over here,
You mean the coop?
everything.
It's a COOP plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a COOP plan, COOP plan.
Continued operation.
Yeah.
Continuity of
It's
operations.
for anything if we had some sort of an emergency happen or what, the departments are supposed to have a plan in place on how would they handle and continue to do business or to be operational if something big happened. You know?
Council took training on this several years ago. Every department, I think, had individual training on their coop plan.
Yeah.
And that still is updated every year.
It was a couple of years ago, about the time when we started to work on WebEx, when one of the judges brought that up, that they wanted to relocate. For some reason at the time, they wanted to relocate a trial or a day of trials out to some other location. And they came to me and says, well, let's move everything out there. I says, that's impossible. And I says, when do you want to move back? The following day. I says, I can't do all that. That's impossible. I mean, it takes these people to put this stuff in place. They're here for a week or longer just to put it in. And so the comment that was made by that, which was a very good comment, I thought, that in my position, I'm supposed to be the one to assist those people to come up with an alternate location or to think about how to keep those offices in operation if something happens. And the comment was, well, what would you do if the building burned down? Where will we be? How will we continue to have courts? And so it got me to thinking about that. So when we did the stuff with WebEx, we started to include stuff in with this building, but we already had some stuff in place. That this room just was a natural fit right off the bat. We could have courts in here. You know, now we're going to get conflicts between the commissioners' meetings and the council meetings when they have to have them. And now that the stipulation that those have to be either streamed or recorded up to the state as well. So, you know, further investigation was that even room 125 with, let's say, Superior Court, that because they're generally smaller in attendance and so on, that room is way more ideal than even this one for like Superior Court, because I can take my whole staff out on the first floor and we could work some other location or even from home. But now Superior Court could bring their staff in on the first floor and have access through another hallway that's being built into room 125 where the public could come in the other direction, which is a stipulation in with the state with the judges. They're supposed to have a separate entrance that's secure that comes in through an alternate way that isn't the same place as where the public comes in. And if we look at that diagram of what we're proposing to do down there, and it was for IT basically, but then it would really fit for an alternate location for a court to do that. Two separate ways to come in through a secure hallway, and the public comes in an alternate way.
Thank you.
So Julie Marie, correct me if I'm wrong. The commissioners tabled this request at their last meeting so that Mike could come to the council for you all to determine, A, whether or not to approve or not, B, if approving, where do you want it paid from? If you approve it, I believe it would then go back to commissioners for the procurement process and for them to approve. Is that correct?
If they have approved it already, the
They have not
procurement-
approved it. The commissioners have not. If they tabled it for Mike to come today to find out how council wanted to pay for it.
Okay, then yes, it would have to go back to commissioners.
Okay. Is that, if it's ARPA, or is that in any capacity, whether they pay for it out of 1140 or whatever that may be?
Just ARPA,
So only ARPA would have to go back.
correct.
I just wanted to have that spelled out by the attorneys so that we had an understanding of what is going on. And I think Mike is saying 100,000 for all of that actually.
Yeah, and I just hit the commissioners with it last week, and I suggested that I would be fine if we table it to let them think about it for a
Right.
while, you know, so that we can have discussions and we can talk about the reasons why that's a better location to have an alternate place and why this room is too, but with the exceptions of when we have other meetings that need to be streamed that we have to have in here. So it does give us backup. This building does give us backup for a couple of places that we could go to, you know. So,
Yeah, and for council's benefit, when we're talking about ARPA, Julie Marie, myself, and my chief deputy, who I asked to come so that she's noticeable today, and she followed suit, so thank you. Thank you, Marie. She listens to me. Anyway, the three of us, following today, are going, after Julie Marie finishes up some resolutions and cleans up some ARPA requests from the past, we will be getting together to go over exactly where we're at, what we need, what we have, and all of that stuff, so that at the September meeting, we will have those answers. So that's just for your knowledge.
I mean, obviously, I don't love the fact that we're over, but I understand that's the situation that we're in. So I don't personally have an issue with the first two parts of that. The extra 25, I'm just on the fence about. I know I've been in a lot of court hearings and there's no back camera, you know, so I mean, I know it's definitely been fine for a lot of Zoom hearings that I've done.
I think worst case scenario too, we could pilfer this room's camera.
Can't take it down.
No.
No. I mean, it's gonna have to go through a completely different setup. They're linked in with the cameras, are linked in with the mic systems. And so if you're actually sitting behind a meeting when they're fully functional, and we have people who are officiating, which this new person that we're gonna hire in will be someone who can officiate the meetings. When it comes up, it's based on the camera's moves, is based on a whole system that sits above the ceiling in the ear. If you go down into room 125, you'll see that with the mics. It will essentially take whoever's talking and it makes a visual map of that, where it's coming from, and it points the cameras to it. So it's all integrated in. It's not a thing where you just say, oh, we just pick up the
Right.
camera,
Yeah, I get it.
display, and take it down. It's
gotta be
it's
configured
almost
for the
like if you want to think about it, it's like a TV studio without the person wheeling the camera around, because it does it by audio
my goodness.
and the mic system and so on that's in the room. It's extremely complicated. That's why the price tag is there on that. And it would help us out even with the training. It's not like we're saying, well, this is 25,000, just in case we have something that goes on
Doesn't get any easier.
with one of the courts and they have to come over here. We could drastically use it in training as well. If we would take a look, I come in as the next teacher, if we come in and we take a look at those front boards and so on, then, and if we're trying to make tapes and recording of training so that when we do train people and we have the video already there, then it becomes something that is more usable for someone to take a look at the training that's already been done and recorded. And they can re-go over the training if they want to. Our staff can re-go over it, or if we got new employees, we'll have a whole library of training that can take place. And so without that there, you're only getting half of what's going on in the room. And it's not going to be very good for the presenter who's sitting in front of the room when the camera's more or less behind them. If we had another camera at the other side of the room so that as they're talking, and this system is such that if that presenter stands in a certain part of the room, it'll automatically turn the camera on back to facing. So there's a whole bunch of features that can be done with this system, and it's all integrated into the software and the hardware. So it's pretty smart. To be able to take it down, we don't just have to take it down, have someone program it.
It's
And then
configured for
remove
each
it,
location,
and then bring it back into here, and to make sure that it's still going to be functional here.
And didn't you say at some point, like our meetings and the commissioner meetings are gonna have to be live streamed as well?
Yes, yeah,
And that's the backup room for our meetings too, are gonna be,
yeah.
if this room is.
Yeah.
Will possibly
Possibly
be required.
I think it's fine. We got bigger fish to fry. And I think this is I mean, of all the ARPA things, you know, spending money on things that county was going to have to spend it on someday should be highest on the list. So this fits that bill. So, I mean, it's kind of on the edge about that last piece, but
I'd make a motion to approve the 90-26109 out of ARPA funds.
You want to make it Robert to 100?
well, the request was for 90, right?
Request is for 90-26109. That's what I have on the.
I would second that.
Bob, Corey,
And is that approval ARPA?
Mhm.
ARPA. Okay, just want to be clear.
What was the dollar amount?
92,061,
90.
09.
90, 261.
260.
26109.
What?
90,200.
Oh, daggone it.
$90.09.
Bree, is it
Wow.
correct that you don't like,
Yeah, we
cents? So why don't we just round it to 9262 for the sake of accounting purposes?
9262 for accounting.
Yes.
Take off the pennies.
Now I got it. 100,000 would have just been much simpler.
It would have been.
I have a motion and a second to approve the ARPA request by way of IT. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
And then, Mike, this will go back to
Commissioner.
commissioners.
We'll probably talk about it later on.
Yeah, because Mark will probably want to satisfy procurement and so forth and so on, and that, plus they'll have to approve it as well, so. Okay.
And this little thing that I sent out to you by email includes many other things that we're working on.
What do you like to do?
So if you want to, please go back and read it again and go over some stuff where we don't anticipate some things going over, especially some things that comes like number 4, item number 4. We've already completed that and it stayed on track with what we have with ARPA. It was basically these things that we had to do, roof construction and things like that, that we had no idea and we couldn't get people to quote, basically, is the reason for that. But thank you today at the time.
Thanks. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
EOC is the jail, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the emergency.
That's, I thought that's where we would think, just trying to have that against it.
They do get confused.
Stan, would you and the rest of the gentlemen come with you if you like?
However you want to operate it, I guess. They don't make it for you.
Good morning, thank you. I've got to read a statement from information pertaining to Golden Meadows. And so if that's all right, I'm just going to go ahead and read a prepared statement and we can open for discussion if you'd like. As you're probably aware, we have experienced current vacancies in the administration staff at Golden Meadows. This includes the loss of our director, business manager, and nursing director, all within a short time. The commissioners initially asked our human resources director, Shannon Green, to act as a liaison for us with that facility, which she did faithfully. We then reached out to officials from Adams Memorial Hospital for assistance in evaluating and administering Golden Meadows Home. They immediately responded by bringing in personnel who have had many years' experience in residential care. They began to evaluate clinical best practices for our residents. The hospital also responded with financial expertise in managing residents' personal finances as well as facility finances. Commissioner Steve Bailey also participated in managing residents' accounts. Residents and staff needs were continued to be met and will continue to be met as needed. The current staff is to be commended for the love, care, and dedication that they show residents in providing for their needs. After several weeks of clinical and financial evaluation, the commissioners met with hospital personnel in executive session. It is the commissioner's opinion at this time that it is appropriate to begin relocating some of the residents so that they may continue to receive the best clinical care, both medical and mental, social experience, and appropriate economic support. The hospital administration has offered their continued help through this process. With this in mind, the future plans may include closing this facility. The decision would be a joint decision between Adams County Council and Adams County Board of Commissioners. We understand our continued obligation to the current residents and intend to provide clinical, social, and economic support as long as the residents are in our care. We also understand that this will involve continuity of staffing this facility as long as we have residents in our care. This continuity would involve hiring an administrator,
to oversee operations at Golden Meadows, as well as maintaining current staff responsibilities. In this cooperative effort, we ask for your deliberation and your decision as council to move this plan forward in a positive and productive way for all concerned. So at this point, obviously we've had to deal with this as far as maintaining the facility and opening up to recommendations. And so I guess at this point, we would be open to whatever discussion you would like to have or questions or if any. So.
I think it's important to a couple of things. Number one, I think that it's important to understand that if we were to go down this road, my understanding is that none of these people would be displaced.
No.
They would
Well,
all be placed somewhere, and primarily it would be at a private place. Some kind of private institution that does a better job at this, quite frankly, than the government does. And is that your understanding as well?
Correct. All of the residents are there and have unique challenges. Some of them have medical challenges, some of them have mental health challenges, some of them have economic challenges. So we intend to work hard to find appropriate placement for all of the residents that are there. The staff that's there have been doing everything they can and know how to continue to provide for all those needs. But in some of the recommendations we've got, there's additional help that they could be getting that our staff are not able to provide. So we want to make sure that they're getting appropriate placement, but nobody's going to be discharged until they have a good place to go.
I think that's important to know, and I shared this morning with some of you guys in the wage meeting. There was a decision that we had to make a month or two ago, and I know I personally went home and really had to think about it because I had two conflicting goods, right? Two things that were good in my mind that I believed in. Which one do I believe in more, right? And so this is the exact same situation. On the one hand, I say that I believe in a conservative, fiscally responsible government, which means small government, means more freedom, means, the welfare system is not what we like, right? That's what I say I believe. But then on this hand, I went out to Golden Meadows and I see this, I went out there and I've got a 6-year-old at home and this lady has the same stuffed animal that my 6-year-old has, and it just breaks your heart. But I also know that if you look at all the folks in DC that none of us like, they do the same thing. They all say, let's be responsible. Let's be fiscally responsible, except for the project that I like. And that is what keeps happening. So you have this conflicting thing going on where I believe in this and I believe in this. So who wins? And so I guess to me, I would say if we say we believe something, we got to stick with it, which leads me towards believing that Golden Meadows is a form of a kind of a government welfare that we say we don't believe. Why don't we believe? You can't just say that. You got to talk about why. We believe that as conservatives because we think the private world can do it better, not because we don't care. We think the private world can do better. And this is a perfect example. I think the Swiss villages, I think some of these places, the level of care that these people could get at a private versus a government institution is so much more compassionate than what we're trying to do. So to me, I think you hit both by staying true to what we say we believe and making sure these people are taken care of in a private way. And I know I've been saying this for a couple of years, and I'm glad that we're kind of here now and having that discussion. And it's not always as comfortable as we want it to be, but it is what we say we believe. We got to follow through on it. So I am in support of this, but I think it's incredibly important that everybody here that we are not saying see the door, right? We're saying we are going to find private locations for you, whether you qualify for Medicaid, whether you qualify for this, that, the other, whatever it is, we're going to find a way to every one of these people to be placed. So I think that's important. I think that's got to be heard by the public.
50 years ago, 80 years ago, healthcare wasn't the same. Everybody was just housed in one hospital. And now the care is so diversified, and we've realized, autism and, different health issues, they threw them all in one basket. And now there's specialized care. And at this point, it seems like it's trying to reinvent the wheel at a loss. We could have the residents in specific defined locations to suit their needs a little bit better, or, in some cases, a lot better. So, yeah, and as long as we can guarantee that, the residents will be placed and able to stay there long-term as needed, I'd be in full support. And if not, we'd have to write it out until we could find that last home for that one last person. So nobody's left in the dark, nowhere to go.
I'd like to commend the commissioners working this out the way they are. And I'd like to point out too that the hospital is providing a lot of information and guidance and direction into this thing. My understanding is this is being done at no cost, right?
Correct.
It's like a point, I think you guys are approaching it right. I think the time element is right. You're going to take your time. And John, I agree with you that everything has changed in healthcare. And we got a lot of the assessments that were done out there are mentally challenged, right?
It's just a real unique situation because there are some mentally challenged, there's some physically challenged. A lot of them are independent as far as being able to move around, and manage their own care and stuff. But, I kind of have to go back to the current staff as to be commended for the love, care, and dedication that they show. Because it's almost like it doesn't matter what their challenges are. The staff just steps up and just does everything they can. So, it's like a family out there, because you talk to the staff, you talk to the residents, and it's like they love each other. So, but, there are some things that the staff, are not able to provide, like, increased mental counseling, and activities like that. And so, we just want to make sure they're all taken care of. And, as far as the hospital, it's like you say, they brought in nurse administrator out of retirement to help us do this. They brought her up, and she had many years of residential nursing care. And so they brought her in to help evaluate clinical best practices. And so that's been invaluable for us. And then with the financial part of it, with Steve Bailey helping out there and Shannon helping with, working through the financial part of it. Plus the hospital has provided a couple of people from the financial end of it. So, we're just really struggling through an interim time here to make the best situation. And through the whole thing, our primary interest has been making sure that the residents are cared for as they should be taken care of.
Yeah, I would support the way you're approaching it. However, I'm going to miss that Thanksgiving and Christmas lunch, this dinner.
I would say I definitely have the same concerns, and I've had issues within my family of people who have different struggles, and so I think I do appreciate the hospital stepping up. However, it's been very highlighted lately, so I do. What my question would be was, will they continue for once people are out of there going forward? Because again, we're a small community, and those are the kind of things I'm talking about where they could step up. Are they going to continue to step up when this is all said and done? I guess that remains to be seen. They've been very highlighted lately, and so they've come out and done that, and that's great. That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about that I've referred to in the past. But I do have a lot of concern for. I'm sure. I know the residents that are there now, will be taken care of. But again, I think of future residents and where we are, as a, we could talk for hours about the state of our healthcare system and the problems it has. But we have to deal with what we have to deal with here locally. And so we have, some limited resources, and I understand that. But I hope, again, we need to make sure we take care of those residents. And I just hope we have some avenue for people in those same situations going forward that maybe potential residents out there, if it were around, so.
And I agree with John, making sure the residents are taken care of no matter how long it takes. But to make sure to take care of the staff as well, make sure there's a good plan in place to make sure the residents that have to stay there as we place, they're not all going to go out at once. They'll be going out gradually if this plan moves forward, but making sure the staff is taken care of to make sure those residents get the quality of care they need while they are still there. Yeah. I think we need to make sure there's a plan in place there as well.
Yeah, I agree.
Stan, are there any filings that we have to do with the state by way of facility closure?
That's a Julie Marie Brown and Mark Berry question.
I know when you displace workers.
At this point, that's nothing that we have to look into.
It's a ways down the
Only
line.
just a kind of a general overview.
It's a little ways off.
It's a little ways off.
So I guess to answer your question, I don't. But I know from what we have looked into it, it would be a joint decision between your council and the commissioner board. But the technicalities,
So for today, is this just discussion or, would you like a vote on direction or?
that's kind of up to you. I guess if you just want to keep it as discussion today, I guess there's not necessarily any reason to take any specific action from this board, but one of the things that we do want to do is obviously we've moved our CNA into more of a overseer position. And then we also, like I said, we want to hire a nurse or hire an administrator for moving the plan ahead. And so in order to do that, we're going to have to move money around in the 1,000 series from salaries to contract because this administrator will be a contract employee. So that's probably specifically that action. But I know you probably haven't been privy to some of the recommendations and discussions that we have. So, I'm certainly not going to push
I think discussion's fine today.
or create an urgency.
Yeah, I'd prefer to leave it marked as discussion or tabled. We've all not had too much time to sift through all the weeds and.
But those are the two things that we would like to move ahead with is moving that position up and then moving money to hire a contract.
Yeah, which we did, and we did the one, and I think the other's coming up here later in transfers.
So yeah, but feel free at any point. I know Kathy and Dennis have been involved a little bit in our discussions. And so we appreciate that. So any questions, any other questions you have?
Hey, can I interrupt just a second? I know we have a person here that's responsible, who's responsible for running the residents. And so, do you have any questions? Or do you understand they're gonna take care of her regardless of?
Yeah, she's kind of in a unique situation, so just moms,
Well, go ahead, explain.
It was just difficult. Kind of Golden Meadows was a different blessing to us. with the situation she was in, so. Again, as long as we can find something equally as or better.
But they're saying that they're gonna take care of what's best for each resident, is that?
And it's gonna be on an individual case-by-case basis as far as, what happens to look at it, each resident, look at what their challenges are, and look at what would be an appropriate care for that person, and what their needs are.
And there's like the individual challenges, but, like Stan brought up, there's also the financial challenges.
Yeah.
And I'm sure
But
Fred
at
maybe has experienced some of this.
this point,
Dealing with someone from another country.
we know that, by means of having the county home in place for many, many years, we have accepted responsibility of the care of those residents, and we still have the responsibility of the residents, until they'd have another approach. So, I mean, we're not shunning anyone, we're not putting anybody out on the street, but we're gonna work with residents and families and staff.
And I'll talk to Shannon, whatever, about, like, I understand there's something like art, and I just need to understand some of that
Yeah.
more.
Sure.
I guess from a family standpoint, my only thing was, I actually heard about all of this from somebody that works in this building. And we found out about this Friday night at 8 p.m., about 8 p.m. Friday night, is when we found out that really we knew about the staff, but knowing about people moving and possible closure and all of this that happened, we got notified, kind of learned about it at 8 p.m. Friday night. So maybe some more communication to the families about what is happening and in kind of a more direct way.
I apologize. In a decision like this, and actually there hasn't been any final decision made at this point, but as we work through this process, it's just really difficult for us to come to an understanding on finding a direction, and then to present with council, and get them involved. It affects so many lives. It affects residents' lives. It affects family lives, staff lives. So it's just been a difficult path for us to walk as far as doing the right thing. So I do apologize for lack of communication. We'll try and work on that to be better as we move on.
I appreciate the steps you are taking.
But part of it is, we honestly didn't know what the future holds. And so it's hard to talk to people, until we come to some decisions, discussion, and soul searching on what's the right thing to do.
Yeah, I was told if it did go forward, it'd be approximately like a year in length. And I understand your concern about notifying the family, but at the same time, it might be, yelling fire before there's, anything to worry about. So if it was to go on, through, then the families would have, a year and a half, whatever the transition. But the long term, it wouldn't be a week's notice or 2 weeks' notice. But yeah, to see it on Facebook, I understand your shock and concern for.
And we were kind of said, oh, it's going to be a couple of weeks.
But to raise the alarms before any alarms needed raised is, and on that front too.
I also want to kudos the staff out there. They're absolutely amazing. They go above and beyond. My mother-in-law happens to not speak very much English, which makes it even more difficult. And one particular staff member has taken it upon herself to learn her language and learn how to write her language, and has written out the activities calendar on a separate calendar for her in her language. And that is just above and beyond. And
Stan? Yeah. This press release, didn't this appear in the paper?
Bulgarian.
That's your
What's that?
press release?
I know I had a press release at our commissioners meeting last Tuesday.
Did it get into the paper at all?
I did.
I think he had
It
something.
did, it
Got
got
both
into the
papers.
paper?
Press release that I sent to you dated July 31st. Yes, that was in the
I
paper.
understand, yeah, okay. So it was put into the paper.
Yeah. So, yeah, it was on, I don't know, Jim, did you get it in the Burn Witness, that press
It
release?
was on the front page.
Okay.
Wait, a front page story.
Okay. And then between that and on the radio, 10,000 times.
Eric does a great job because he doesn't understand.
So
Thank
anyway.
you all for the process.
So it's going, yeah, we have a major story.
So, like I say, if you got more questions, we're happy to answer them. Thoughts going forward, because it's a process in motion.
Thank you for the update, Stan. Yep. You're welcome.
Well, let Dennis announce you. This all proper.
Did you sign the ordinance, the tax ordinance already? Circulated?
It's over there on the
It's
ledge.
circulated.
Joanne Marie?
Yes.
So if you,
And her mother.
if you,
I'm just gonna say that I may use her name to say that she has.
officially make a motion, the ordinance, let's do that now.
We don't need the ordinance. They
Because
were
it-
voted on.
Okay, we should be good.
Resolution is just written ordinances.
Correct.
Should be good.
Okay, good morning. I just have a few resolutions. These are in large part things that have already been discussed and decided. This is just the formalization of it. First would be proposed resolution 18. That would formalize the grant of funds to supplement the generator project. That was voted on last month in the sum of $249.482. So that is proposed resolution number 18. That is-
49,000, right?
I'm sorry, 249,000, yes.
You don't need a motion.
I do need a motion to adopt the resolution.
Okay, resolution 2023-18 to approve.
Motion to adopt. Second.
Fred and John. All those in favor? Opposed? So moved.
Thank you. The second one is proposed resolution 2023-19. This is with regards to the pickleball court. If you recall, Parks and Recreation made an ARPA request for some funds to repair and replace some things at the rec center. And they also made a request for bridge repairs. Those three were all separated out and individually approved after going in front of the commissioners. So this is the third part of that three that had previously been discussed and approved. This specifically notes that the total amount for just the pickleball court is going to be $80,698. For your information, that breaks down to procurement has already been done. Asphalt was going to be about $33,000. Fencing is about $28,000. Nets and poles, $6,500. And lumber for the pavilion, $12,450. So that's where that final $80,000 figure. So at the,
If I could interject just a second, that originally, if you remember, was 93.7. Because of procurement and everything else, it's gone down to this amount, and also the fact that Decatur Park and Rec are doing some of the work. to also save money. So it went from 93.7 to 86.98, just point of information.
So this is proposed resolution 2023-19.
All those in favor of the resolution as
Motion first.
motion?
Motion approved.
Fred and Bob?
Fred and Bob. All those in favor of resolution 2023-19? Opposed?
Next, I have proposed resolution 2023-20. That would be the ratification of your prior vote to grant ARPA funds in the amount of $110,035 to the Oakwood Housing Community Association for their replacement of aging water main infrastructure that services their housing community. So at this time, I would ask for your consideration with regards to resolution 2023-20.
Need a motion?
Bob.
Bob?
Second.
All those in favor of resolution 2023-20? Opposed?
Lastly, I just want to ensure that everybody has received a copy of the ARPA fund update that I prepared and disseminated to everyone. If you would note that it looks like at this juncture, including these, we have unallocated ARPA funds in the amount of $1,973,907.20. But currently, based upon information that we've received in applications, and in fact, I've not opened my email, but as I sit here, I received another ARPA application. Currently pending and anticipated requests total $1,655,522.66. So I do encourage you to bear that in mind as you consider future funding requests. That's all I needed from you. Thank you. You get this on.
What is that?
What's this one? Oh, I'm sorry, forgive me. I have one more thing that I forgot to do. Remember we talked about the interlocal agreement between city and county with regards to the Merit Center. The Merit Center is applying to get funding for a transportation project and is now required to get that in place by January. They have ascertained that they need a property in order to house the vehicles that they're going to be using in this public transportation project. In order to get that housing, that building done, they're going to need to purchase property from the city. An interlocal agreement has now been executed between the city and the county with regards to our giving the city $200,000 for the construction of that building. And we would also be contributing to repairs and replacement costs for the Merit Center, which we are renting from the city. By the way, rent is, it's not an exchange of money. It's for, the Merit Center is being administered by the person that runs the Council on Aging. So the county isn't out anything on this. But at any rate, I believe it was back in March or April in which this was brought to the council, and the council at that time did agree to an amount of up to $200,000 from ARPA to help facilitate with this program in building that building. So at this time, I would propose your consideration of Resolution 2023-21, which would officially allow the funds to be dispersed for that purpose.
I'll make a motion to approve. So I do have a question. Going forward, does it say anything about rent going forward, or?
It's going to be the same. There is going to be no rent. The rent, quote unquote, is simply the Council of Aging administrator just taking care of and administering the property.
For X amount of years?
I
or-
believe it's 20.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
It was 20.
I'm sorry, Stan, did I miss something?
I just wanted to clarify a point if I might. The $200,000 does not include building.
Okay,
It's just for the land
okay,
so the building the building, that's gonna come from council on aging.
okay.
So it's just for the land.
Just for the land and for the
The use-
repairs to the Merit Center, the HVAC. Okay. And then the Council on Aging is going to handle the building part of it.
Resolution.
John had a motion. We haven't had a second yet.
Second.
Or until now.
This is resolution
2023-21.
All those in favor of resolution 2023-21?
Aye.
Opposed?
Passes.
Thank you. Now I really am finished. Thank you for your attention.
Victoria, Sheriff?
Does the council know when they will be making decisions on the other requests because the quotes are becoming stale?
My understanding is we have our budget meetings the end of this month, and then we can try and get those hammered out and hopefully vote next meeting. I mean, am I misstating that?
Well, plus Julie Marie, myself and Bree are going to get together for the September meeting to figure out after today where we're at.
Yep.
And what's needed. Yeah.
Before Tony starts, I want to commend Tony and Bree and the rest of the auditor staff in the completion of their two-year audit. They came through with wonderful review, and I think they should be commended for the work that they do with the due diligence and their visionary support of what's happening. They do a fine job.
As well as the treasurer's office also, and the recorder and the surveyor too. And Brad, anybody.
We are definitely blessed with people who do their job faithfully.
Well, that's what I was gonna say, so no, I was just kidding.
You don't know who you are. Who are you talking about?
No. Okay, I have a few things here. One thing that we have to do every year that we did last August is usually pretty simple. In 2016, the state repealed the Indiana code that forced non-binding reviews to come before us, the cities and all that stuff. When really there wasn't anything that we could do about it. It's just kind of took over half a day just to have all of them come in, and there really wasn't any purpose in it. So the state in 2016 repealed that and eliminates that portion of that. We also have to review at this meeting, and you all were sent this information, the circuit breakers and the estimated circuit breakers from the state and so forth and so on. The fact that there's a 4% growth quotient. We're required at this meeting for you guys to acknowledge that we sent that. And this would be a time for you to approve me to distribute the minutes of this meeting once they are approved next month to all of the taxing units to notify them of what we're saying, that
Of the changes.
you don't have to come. So it's really the same thing that we did every year since 2016, which actually was a smart move. I don't know how many smart moves the state makes, but that was one of them.
I'll make that motion.
Okay. Second. Corey and who? Bob? We'll get that written down. Okay, we got a motion in a second.
Motion and a second to approve the dissemination of the information to the entities. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay. Okay, and then couple other things. Actually, I'm going to have a couple of things when we come up with the salary ordinance and so forth and so on that I'll discuss at that time. One of those is additional appropriations. Corey and I have discussed I don't know how long it was discussed, past couple of years or something, about when there is an additional appropriation. The one that we have this month is not extra money. It is simply appropriating monies that are already there because it actually can't be used for anything else other than what it's being used for. However, for the sake of time, I told Corey that maybe we could discuss this at the council meeting. Personally, I don't have a problem myself of getting the information that Corey had been asking for. It's not that much. It's not anything the departments can do. It's going to be me doing it. I'm not even going to ask Bree to do it. I will do it myself if we have an additional. Now, that being said, I don't think we've had any additionals all year. So that tells me that we are cooperating, as Corey said. We are doing due diligence. I know Bree, when an additional comes across, she looks and tells them, hey, this can be a transfer rather than an additional. So we've been very diligent about that. I don't mind taking a few minutes to, when we do get an additional that requires extra revenue, sending out, Corey, help me if I say this wrong, January 1st of the previous year, January 1st of the current year, and an estimate on the January 1st for the following year, which in saying estimate, that's what it truly would be. We'd be estimating. So in the sake of cooperation, just to show that I'll just do that. I'll just do that myself. And I'll send that out when we have an additional before every meeting to all of you so that you can see that information.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I know I said it earlier today when we approved that income tax cut, you know, the conversation has changed over the last year, you know, and we're having conversations. The things I've been talking about, we're having good, productive discussions. So this is another one of those that I want to thank Tony for, because I think it's important when we approve an additional appropriation to know, is there cash in this account to do it? Is the account trending up? Is it trending down? So I appreciate that. I think that'll be really helpful when we do additionals to know if there's enough money in there to do that. So appreciate that.
The other thing, and if Dennis wants to, as president, rather than do other matters, I could just go ahead and do the transfers and all that stuff, and it's kind of going along with what we're talking about. I think we need to advertise the budget hearings that you want in the newspapers August 28th and August 29th. Now that room 125 is open, we have reserved that room. It has the screens on it, so you can look at the budget being done in real time and everything. We have reserved from 8 to 4, the 28th and the 29th. If you remember that Tuesday, the 29th, the commissioners had a meeting. I don't know about drainage board or anything else. However, instead of interrupting and so forth and so on, if we do not get through everything on the first day, that allows you all day that Tuesday to be down there to get this done. That being said, and also in the spirit of cooperation, although I do want to say, thank you, Dennis, for saying what you said. And I know several of you were involved in that exit conference. Several of you were also involved, a few of you were involved also in the DLGF budget workshop. So you got to hear both things. It says that we are doing okay. We are doing fine. We are not doing anything wrong. Everything is cool. That's not how they put it exactly, but that's my wording. But I do feel like I understand what Corey and Fred and well, all of you, you have the goals of doing what's best for all the taxpayers, and we do too. That being said, we had talked about, Corey, it was a 3% wage, not to exceed 10% previous year expenditure, correct?
Mhm.
We looked at those numbers and kind of sent out to everybody some columns on things, and quite frankly, I don't think removing the overtime line moved the needle that much as far as what we were looking at. So you all have that. All that our office needs to know, which departments, other than the ones that have already said they want to come before you, and we are putting them down for the times that they can come in on those days, you all need to tell us which departments, when you look at the budgets we sent out, which departments do you want that aren't already coming in to come in so you can go over the budget with them. I don't think it really matters to Bree and myself who you ask to come in, because, if it's, the,
And you want this put into the advertisement,
no,
or this is just?
no, all we need to do for the advertisement
I
is
thought
to
that's what you were
advertise in the
getting
paper. It's from 8 to 4,
Right.
August 28th, 29th. What I'm telling you guys so that you're ready for, I know Corey had mentioned maybe spending the first hour of that day discussing goals and so forth, but leading up to that day, the departments have to notify us if they want to come before you, regardless of what their percentage was. And you guys will need to let us know if there are departments that you look at that you want to see come in. Now, I'll give you an example of where the overtime line coming out did put somebody under 10%, and that was the treasurers. It took it from 10.56 down to 9 point something by taking that overtime line out. So whether or not you would want, you see what I'm saying? It's kind of up to you guys to let us know prior to those dates so that we can contact the departments, let them know that you all want to see them. That being said, we cannot have a quorum. We cannot have a meeting on that.
Yeah.
We can just all email you, right?
So
It's always form.
I would say individually, you can just let us know.
And I would say, I think we're in agreement though, that anybody that did say under 10%, we told them we're not going to need to meet with you if you do that. So we want to stick with that. And I'm okay extending that if the overtime threw them over, because that kind of got forced on them.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, are we on the same page with that? Okay.
Yeah.
So anyone that is under the 10% plus that overtime issue, we don't need to meet with those people unless they're wanting it.
Okay. Julie Marie, I don't know if we need a motion and a vote to have the auditor's office advertise those 2 days, 8 to 4, as budget hearings, and also stipulate that anyone under that initial 10% threshold does not need to come. As
Probably
Mark
for-
always says, it never hurts to have a motion.
Right, I was going to say,
Probably
go
for the
ahead
2
and put it
days,
in
but
minutes with a
I don't know
motion.
why we need it.
We may not need the 2
10%.
days,
No, he's saying just include
but we
the 2
have it
days.
if you need it.
Yeah, right. No, a motion for the 2 days,
Yeah.
because it's got to be advertised, but the.
Yeah, no need to make-
Right.
We
Yeah,
don't
I
know.
think
I'll
just
see why we
schedule
need
10%.
that.
I don't think we need a motion on that.
So just the motion on the 2 days.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And is it in 125 or?
Room 125, that way you're not interrupted on that Tuesday, you're
I'm
down
just
there.
the same, get it included that too.
Now that being said, during the commissioners meeting that day, I'll be up here doing that, and Bree will be facilitating things down there that day.
This should be fine.
The screens are nice and big, even I could see them from the back of the room. It's huge, there's 2 of them. So, Dennis, I think we just need to entertain a motion. Bree, unless I'm missing something.
We'll put the 2 agendas out for, I think we just do it as a work session. For those 2 days. And we only have 2 departments right now that's even asked to come, so.
Okay, so just to be safe, we can get a motion to advertise
Yes.
budget hearings, work sessions, whatever you want to call it, for Monday and Tuesday, the 28th and 29th of August. And to reiterate, for all the people out there in YouTube land that look at this later, the goal is so that on September 12th, when we have the public hearing on the budget, we have a more true number of what we are going to be looking at.
Yep, this is another one of those things that I've really enjoyed the ability to productively talk about over the last year, and we can now advertise a budget that is real, not just kind of pick a number out of the air, but we can advertise to the public what we actually intend to do.
And that being said, Corey, for the ones that were involved in the budget workshop, you heard it too. And Corey, you know this as well from last year. When we do the workshop, they do it based on 85% of assessed value. And they do that purposely, and I even specifically asked, is the reason you do this to artificially increase tax rates so that you capture the dollars that you need to operate? The answer was yes. And Bree asked the question, as it looks now with what we have that we're all looking at, does it look okay? Our DLGF rep, Lane, said, yes, it does. So I wanted to get those two things out there. If I said anything wrong, Fred, Kathy, Steve Bailey, correct me, but I think that's what we heard. And so just remember that as we go into it.
And that's basically them saying, if you approve everything that everybody asked for, then you wouldn't violate any laws. We would,
Right.
So they're not policy advisors. So they're just saying regulatory.
They're regulatory,
You would be okay.
Yeah.
Now it's up for us to say policy wise, what do we want that budget and tax rate to look like?
And keep in mind that they based it on the 85%.
Right.
I'll make a motion to advertise the 28th and 29th for budget hearings
You want to identify the place where we're meeting?
at room 125.
Also, we should put the time on there
Yeah.
too. Okay.
8 to 4. Okay.
Have a motion before us for budget hearing. Those in favor? Opposed?
Okay. I seem to have quite a bit today. I apologize.
So for scheduling, basically, if they're under the 10% plus the overtime, we don't need to meet with them. And then other than that, then what? Do we want to schedule them all or just the
I would
people that
say-
we emailed you about?
I think our plan would be, unless we hear otherwise from you all, anyone over the 10%, we will try to get scheduled for Monday if possible, if we can fit them all in on Monday.
I think we can go faster. We don't need to go line by line by line by line. I think the question is basically going to be,
Yeah.
you're over 10.
What's our
why?
question? That's it. I have
Yeah.
a question every line.
So that's what our plan is.
Much faster today.
Oh, I hope we can get through, yeah.
It just depends on how many questions, it just,
Right,
we'll,
I'm just.
we'll see how it goes. You know, I might say also that if you look at county general, the way it is now, without the budget process, as it is now, it is 6.56% above the previous year. Just throwing that out there.
You mean the cash balance or you mean the budget?
The
Or you mean
budget.
The budget.
The budget. I think overall it's 8 point something. Bree, you have that off the top of your head, the overall budget,
That's in benefits.
it's 8 point something, but
We're
just
starting in
saying,
the right boat, because I want to say last year, the requested came in like 13 or 14%.
Yes.
So we're already in the right.
so
direction.
those are the, like I said, yes, we want cooperation, we want compromise, keeping in mind that, if there's something that our office needs to say or that you guys need to say, we may not always agree, but that's fine. Nobody said we have to. But, okay, so the next thing, this is okay if I go ahead into the additionals and so forth. So the additional appropriation, is it okay if we do these separately? Additionals, transfers, and
Yeah, I mean, I'll make a motion to approve all the transfers, just get that, knock that out.
Second.
okay, let me write that down.
Slow down, slow down.
Transfers Corey and who? And Brad?
Which, and Tony, you mentioned this earlier, but I think it's worth highlighting. I mean, we used to have additionals every single meeting.
Yes.
And we really started, that was one of my big things was, let's transfer, let's not do an additional. And your office has done a really good job of pushing that back and making sure they do that. So we haven't had an additional for months now.
That's really Bree that deals directly most of the time, unless she's on vacation. But yes, we are questioning that and pushing back on that and so forth, so. So anyway, the transfers are good then. We vote on that already?
No.
Okay. Go ahead.
There's Corey and
And Fred.
Fred. All those in favor of the transfers as presented?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay. Additional appropriation. Tom is actually here if you have questions on this. This is just to appropriate monies that are already there for identification protection, which is the only thing this fund can be spent on. And that is to redact private numbers, Social Security, that kind of thing. And the request is in the amount of $3,354, $3,354. And it's not extra money. Again, it is just appropriating that.
And you heard Tony say earlier that there was the three things that I thought was important for us to know going forward. So he pulled those on this one. And that is, we're trying to figure out what is the cash balance of these funds doing before we approve additionals. So it was 31,000 is what this fund had at the beginning of last year. 37,000 is what it had at the beginning of this year. And it's projected to end at 33. So to me, that I think that's helpful information. This is a small example of that, but I think it's good to know what the cash balance is doing before we approve additionals.
That's the only one.
That's the
So that
only.
would change your projected from 33 to 30, basically.
And like I say,
Which is
if we
fine.
get an additional in the future, and the reason I don't know that we want to change that whole sheet that they fill out, because departments wouldn't be able to do it. It's going to be our office anyway. I won't always be here. Corey won't always be here. You guys won't always be here. So there's no sense to change that. I'll just send it. So, okay. I need a motion on
Need a motion to approve the additional?
to approve.
I'll second.
And
Bob and
Kathy.
Kathy. All those in favor of the additional appropriations? Opposed?
Thank you. Okay, when we get to the amended salary ordinance, the one you've already kind of discussed, Shannon was up here to discuss the resident medical coordinator. The other is something that I believe I've mentioned to you. There was an issue after Mike Whirling was elected surveyor. He was also the plat book technician, and that is a very technical skill set. Not everybody can do that. And because of the fact that State Board of Accounts does not allow two lucrative positions, although lucrative is a loose term, it basically means you can't do two different things and get paid for two different things. When State Board of Accounts was here, we discussed with them, okay, we've talked to 4 or 5 people in the county that can actually do this work. They've all said they don't want to do it, they don't have time, whatever the reason may be. So how can we make this work? Because plat book technician is an extremely important part of the process between assessor, auditor, well, the whole thing. It's just an important cog in the wheel. So it needs to be done. We don't want to get behind on it. And what State Board said, and there is a precedent for it, one of the precedents in the county is the clerk, because they get their clerk salary. They also do election board. They get salary for that. It's all under their duties. So State Board of Accounts said, if the council will appropriate the money or the transfer fees that were being paid for the plat book technician and put it all under the surveyor duties. And it attaches only to this person. If someone else is elected in the future that does not qualify to be a plat book technician, this does not automatically go to them. This is for Mike Whirling individually. He will get paid under surveyor duties for both jobs. State Board of Accounts said that was perfectly fine. They don't have a problem with that at all, so it solves a whole lot of issues. And Mike is here. I don't think Mike has a problem with that either.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Second.
Who said it?
Fred.
Fred and who?
Rex. Is there,
Going forward though, I mean, Mike, is this gonna be something that's gonna be a problem for future? I mean,
I don't think so. I believe I can handle both of them, and I'll work after hours also if we need. So that's what I've been doing previous.
okay. Is it, I'm also thinking beyond your tenure here. Are we, I mean, is this something we have to get in the works to get somebody for this? I mean, what's that
I
look
can't
like?
speak for the future.
is there any training or is it just hands-on?
Or what is it?
Yeah, it's very, like Tony said, it's very specific skill set. Legal description, surveying, and the deeds, so.
Actually writing in the plat books.
So there's no classes or, courses, it's all hands-on. You have to be mentored through it.
Yeah, that's probably what we do. It's very specific.
It's
I'm
like,
like,
it's like a super title searcher, and I can tell you from our title company, there are no searchers anywhere nearby, anywhere. And it's like, we have to make them all. We have one searcher, and then we put someone with them for 6 months until they've learned it all.
I guess just my biggest concern is that maybe looking forward, I don't know if there's somebody within the county right now that has any interest in learning that skill, or even a couple of people that, maybe we look at that just to try to.
There is a number of people, mostly land surveyors or somebody that has land surveying experience is the ideal candidates, but no, they've all been contacted.
Right.
And no one local or within the surrounding counties can be found.
Well, just if there's a way to somehow find somebody that is a current county employee is what I'm getting at, to where, because you're talking about people who don't work for the county, they are an independent surveyor, right?
Correct.
So, I mean, if we found somebody within the county, if we start, they start getting some of that mentorship from you, hopefully, and not to necessarily, because I don't want you doing that job, more so if in your absence, we have somebody to take your place.
Yeah, I'm open for that. That'd be great.
If we could just maybe look for that person.
Yeah, we will continue looking, like I say, with help from others. Stan made some calls, talked to some people. I'm sure others did too. Mike did, I did. It's just such a skill set that's
worked until he was about 80 years old, so he kind of set a precedent. So we're expecting that.
Mike's doing it until he's 80. But yeah, we'll continue looking into, Fred, we've even talked to Wells County about electronic.
Oh,
And looking toward that.
We just need to start thinking about the future, so.
I agree. Was there a vote on that or just a
No, we
motion?
need a motion.
I think Fred made the motion and I think Rex made the second.
I didn't hear Rick.
Yeah.
All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
So that is the salary ordinance transfer. And additionals are all done. I only have one other thing, I think. The only other thing that I have today is just kind of a cleanup. After the last meeting, I went back, I always do, I go back and re-listen to it all to make sure that I'm getting the minutes correct. And I don't know if you all wanted to, when we discussed the retention of John Becker, attorney, there wasn't any cap or anything actually made, there was no motion to put any kind of cap or anything else, or where to pay it from, but I'm assuming, Corey, when you said there were the funds for it, you were talking about the council attorney line. So I would leave that for discussion as to whether or not, I know that there was some talk about $275 an hour and approximately 10 hours, but nothing was motioned or anything, so.
Yeah, I guess, did you go back and listen to it?
Yep.
Okay. I think.
There was no motion.
Of
The only motion was to retain him. There was no motion as far as how much or anything else. It was just open-ended. So I wanted to know here.
I remember making a motion to accept that. I don't know if it was voted on.
You didn't accept a cap.
Right.
Yeah. You want
You just made a motion to retain. Or
Yeah.
there was a motion to retain, but no motion to say we want to limit it at 10,000, 5,000, whatever amount that may be, because your council attorney line is there's only so much in it, and that's also used for Julie Marie. And
I guess I thought it was implied that it was at the 10 hours.
well, implications don't count.
Right.
It's gotta be an actual motion as to what you guys want. Now, that's totally up to
I'd
you,
like to
but
see it capped. What about you, John?
Yeah, I mean,
I make a motion to go, I'll make a motion not to exceed $2,750.
I would not agree with that. I think if we need to have a cap, that's fine, but let's give him some room, right? Because we want to get answers. So I don't want to he's giving you your estimation is what he thinks the time will take. But I can tell you, Julie can tell you, as an attorney, you don't know what you're going to hit yet until you hit it. If you get a bunch of resistance from someone that won't hand over documents to you, you got to get it. You got to give them a little bit of room. I'm okay with the cap, but I need some room.
Well, he said he could do it in 10 hours.
He's estimating that, yes. And I
Well,
think he has
let's hold him to his word.
well, yeah, I understand what Corey's saying. You can't.
He's going to come back and say, I can't give you a full report because so-and-so wouldn't give me the document.
the other thing I don't know the answer to, Corey, Brad, whoever, all of you. How was it stated? Like, who is going to tell Mr. Becker, here's what you're doing, here's what you're looking at, here's what we want you to do? Because if he's got 7 people emailing him, some attorneys charged by every email and everything else, so I don't know how that's going to look. Is there a central person? How are we going to tell him what exactly is wanted of him?
I don't know that you necessarily need that. It's the same as we do with Mark or Julie. I mean, it's not like we all say nobody can talk to Julie except for, Dennis.
I'm just throwing it out there. Like if he calls me and says, hey, what is it they want? I want to be able to have an answer to him.
Yeah.
Say, I think they just want to see if the agreement looks okay. And I think that's what was said.
Corey and John have already both reached out to him, but I mean, like Corey just said, I can reach out to him too. So, I mean, I think he's got some direction, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So we have a motion that has been seconded. We're still discussing a possible cap and so forth.
Yeah, I don't know where to cap it either though.
I mean, he's going to bill monthly, so it's not like you're not going to know if it's getting high.
You've got the motion. I'll second the motion.
It's $3,500.
Kathy,
I think the only ones that would know, if we get the invoices, we'll know.
Kathy second.
Rex and Kathy, motion and second.
Would you guys amend it to 5 just to give him some room?
5? I wasn't for it to begin with, so no, because I don't know exactly what you're looking for.
Well, like he said to everybody
Laid out
here,
pretty clear several times. We're looking at our options and repayment of the bond and the hospital's obligations. I mean, what more do you need?
What more do you need? Because they kept up with everything. There's a contract, it's there. What have they done wrong?
I didn't say.
no one said they did.
I don't think they're gonna find it.
Would you state your motion again, Kathy?
Actually, it was Rex that made the motion, Kathy second.
Cap it at $2,750.
So you have a motion second that requires a vote, regardless of how people vote. And then we'll see if it's voted up or down.
All those in favor of the motion of capping it at 2750?
Aye.
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 3
Was that three of you?
opposed?
Nay.
Nay, I don't know what to say.
Again, I'm not opposed to cap, but a little bit of room I think is reasonable.
I think it's,
Did you vote
I don't
for
know.
John also?
I didn't say a word, yeah, a cap's needed, but
Not that one.
So John, Fred,
I mean, you guys wouldn't go to 5? Just to give them some room, or Bob?
I'm not gonna budge off.
My understanding was at the last meeting, when we said 10 hours, I thought that's what we were voting on at the last
Yeah.
meeting.
Was there a tie vote?
and there's no, it really doesn't matter to me either way. I just need to clear, because if we start getting invoices, I didn't know where to stop it, if at all.
Dennis has to.
I
vote.
I would vote in favor of capping the amount
We are in favor of cap, but not.
They're all in favor of capping.
at 2750 is what the rest,
That's what's on the table, yes. That's what you're voting on.
yeah. I would vote in favor of that.
Okay.
Thank you for allowing me to vote.
And when I was first made president, I had 2 in a row.
Yeah.
That might be one of your first.
Yes. Either,
That's all I needed on that, and I didn't even, I hated to even bring it up, but I thought it was necessary because I went back and looked and there was no exact, all that was discussed was the 275 an hour, and he estimated 10 hours, so technically it could have been more than that. So that's the only reason I brought it up, is to know what that would look like as we're getting invoices in.
yeah,
Yeah, he could come back and only bill for 8.
Yeah.
You know, it could be,
Or he could come
12.
back and say, hey, I might need more than 10 hours, and then you can have that discussion.
yeah.
we're at that point in the agenda where we have other matters as properly presented. Anything to be brought before the council at this time? Stan, anything else by way of,
I don't know that we have anything additional, no one knows. So yeah, we appreciate you working with us on our projects, and we'll continue to keep everybody informed.
Sheriff? Anyone else? At this point in the agenda, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Fred and John?
All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you all.